All right, guys, welcome to the Helicopter Podcast. I'm your guy, Halsey Schider, and it is day 2 at Verticon, and I am very excited to be having my first podcast here. Actually, yesterday I was roaming the floor. I was checking out the sites, filming some content. I came over to the Airbus booth, actually, and saw the 140. So I'm just excited to be here at Verticon. Lots of energy, lots of excitement for the very first Verticon. And one of the big news, there's a couple of news items, but a big one for Airbus is the introduction of the 140. And so I'm really excited to talk about that and learn more about that. But before we dive into it, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about you, Dirk, and Volker. Dirk, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, so I'm in charge of the H135 and the H140 programs in Airbus Helicopters. I've been with Airbus since 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and spent most of my time in engineering and joining programs 5 years ago.
Awesome. So I'm always interested to kind of have a day in the life. So real quickly, just give me a quick day in the life of your role at Airbus.
So as I said, I'm in charge of the 135. So a lot of what I'm doing is related to the serial business of the 135, making sure that we fulfill our contracts, that the helicopters are delivered on time. In parallel, we develop further the platform. We invest in the 135 and do continuous development there, meeting the expectations of our customers. And then we have launched the H140 development, which we have talking about.
Sure.
And I'm in charge of leading this development in Airbus Helicopters.
Yeah, really exciting. Well, Dirk, thank you for joining the Helicopter Podcast, and I'm excited to dive in. Volker, test pilot. I feel like I would want your job. I don't think I could do your job personally, but maybe I could. I don't know. I'm a decent pilot, but I don't know if I could be a test pilot. So, Volker, welcome. Give us just a little bit of background, your history, your flight history. And I am curious how someone becomes a test pilot for a large OEM.
So I'm Volker Bau. I'm the chief test pilot of Airbus Helicopters in Germany. So I'm responsible for all flight operation of the helicopter site in Germany. Yeah, how to become a test pilot? You need some operational background. My operational background was 20 years in the German Army aviation. And then you need a test pilot school. I was on the best test pilot school in Boscombe Down in UK. And then after some experience with the military, I joined in 2006 Eurocopter at this time and now Airbus Helicopters.
Really cool. So you guys both have a lot of longevity at Eurocopter, now Airbus, of course. I guess that really speaks to the culture of working at Airbus. I know that we haven't really discussed talking about that, but I am just curious kind of what is the culture and the excitement right now around Airbus and working there?
Yeah, we work as a team. So everything we do is in teamwork across the functions, and the role of program is to connect all the functions in the company and make sure that we fulfill our targets.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's important. And it sounds like you obviously love what you guys do. Obviously, you've been there for that long. And so that's really cool to have that type of longevity. You mentioned test pilot school. Just talk to me a little bit about that. I'm just kind of curious of what that is like, how long that is, and what kind of things that you are learning at that school.
Yeah, on the test pilot school, you're about 1 year there, and you learn to fly a lot of helicopters, of course, but you learn to see some behavior of aircrafts in the air, and then you have to put it in a report, you have to put it in data, and you have to send it to the engineers that they improve it or change it. That's right. So you don't have to be the best aerobatic pilot, so that's not the case.
I feel like you have to be a very observant pilot, right? You have to be able to hear things, feel things, and then be able to articulate that to the engineers. I feel like that could be tricky. My good buddy Zach over here, he's a real methodical guy, and we ride a lot of bikes together. and I'm kind of just ride hard, and he's all about feeling the bike and how it all. So I think he would be actually a better test pilot. Yeah, I don't think I could do it, but pretty cool. Well, the 140, congratulations. Just talk to me a little bit about the excitement of unveiling the 140 here at this year's very first Verticon.
There are two very emotional moments in the development. And the first one is the first flight of an aircraft. So that is where the point of truth is, to see how the aircraft behaves. And there's a high level of excitement in the team, and you personally feel the emotion. And the unveiling of an aircraft is quite similar. So yesterday, when the curtain dropped, I had goosebumps. So I felt the excitement, and it's now we are out.
Yeah, and it's probably, how many years exactly has it been in development now?
We formally launched the development of the H140 in 2021, so 4 years ago. And in the 4 years, we have brought an aircraft in the air, our prototype one.
Mm-hmm.
It was had the first flight mid of 2023. And since then, we have worked on the serial design of this aircraft.
Very cool. That's a big secret to keep for a long time. So I'm sure yesterday kind of felt like a big weight lifted off. And again, congratulations. The response that I've heard just walking around the floor was a lot of excitement. I went over, checked out the aircraft yesterday. Talk to me just a little bit about some of the gaps that you guys were seeing at Airbus that influenced the decision to pursue the H140.
So as you know, we are extremely successful with our light helicopter product range. So the 135 is the market leader in the CS27, FAR27 light twin helicopter class. The H145 dominates the market in its perimeter. And when speaking to our customers, we receive continuously the feedback. The 135 is extremely reliable, mature. You can operate the aircraft at the lowest operating cost across all the twin-engine helicopters, but it has its limitations in cabin space and also a bit in performance. And our customers were seeking for more space to increase the mission flexibility. And that was in the end motivating us to launch investigations to adapt basis of the H135, the airframe, to fulfill those requirements.
Yeah, I was reading in the article that Oliver wrote that the client collaboration was really important, GMR, ADAC. How do those conversations go? I mean, I'm just kind of curious to be a fly in the wall of what kind of feedback were they really providing? Was it space and performance was kind of the key factors?
So this, as I said, we collected this, and this was a generic feedback from the market from many segments. And when we were launching the development of the H140, we were inviting our customers from the EMS segment, so the one of the best ones in the world, in order to give us input for the development. And we started with a full-scale mock-up on the airframe, discussing about how the cabin need to look like, that it's the optimal definition for EMS operations. And then based on this, we elaborated how to implement the medical interior, what is important for which kind of EMS mission, and we iterated to the optimum.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the air medical configuration, but I want to jump over to Volker real fast and just talk a little bit about what Dirk was saying with performance. So, Volker, can you just tell me a little bit more about the performance enhancements of the 140 and what customers can expect on performance and how Airbus has achieved increasing that performance from its predecessor?
So this aircraft, as you see, has this new 5-bladed rotor. And we had this experience from the 145, so we reduced vibration. This is very important for the guys working in the helicopter in the back. And we will increase the performance in weightlifting and in altitude. And as you know, the 145 is the altitude extremely performance, and we expect exactly the same results on the 135. And this is what we need. This is what the customer needs.
Yeah, it's incredible to have that performance in the 140. I'm going to come back to you here, Dirk, and talk about the medical interior. What are some of the enhancements inside the cabin that you guys have made after hearing that feedback from the customers to make this truly an aircraft that really fulfills the air medical mission?
Yeah, it's first about an ergonomic working place for the medical personnel. So we took care that everything is in reach of the paramedic who is treating the patient. And then it's about positioning of the individual elements of the medical interior in an efficient way. And if we speak about FAR-27 aircraft, it's all about weight. So we integrated from the beginning a medical floor that is optimized for a medical interior with a railing system where you can implement quickly the elements. And on top, we integrated in the structure a fixed provision that allows you to quickly install all the devices in a way that you save weight compared to what is today done on a, for instance, 130.
Yeah, it makes sense. So obviously air medical is a big target for you guys, and you guys have legitimately created the aircraft for that mission and that role. But I'm guessing that there's some other target missions that you guys are hoping that this aircraft can fill within the industry. What are some of those other missions?
Yeah, it's quite clear. So it starts with the cabin. If you increase the cabin versus a 135, it becomes very interesting for passenger transport and PBA as well. So with the H140, we can provide comfortable seating for up to 6 passengers, and that is a major difference to the 135, where you are in a high density configuration when you squeeze in 6 people. And in combination with the larger back windows, we have also emergency exits on top of the sliding doors, which allows you to operate the aircraft in offshore, also with 6 persons on board. And that is also giving you an indication of the segments we are addressing at the beginning. We are starting with EMS. There we see the major market of the H140, and we see the H140 becoming, after the H135, the next reference in air medical operations throughout the world. And the next segment we cover will be passenger transport. Then we will introduce in 2030 the ACH 140. So this is our private business aviation version of the aircraft. Next one will be offshore. This covers oil and gas, it covers offshore wind, and also harbor pilot transfer, which is quite a segment for the 135 today, but with the larger cabin, it addresses even more missions and better efficiency in the harbor pilot transfer that is given today. And then last but not least, it will be also very interesting aircraft for public services, especially with the modular cabin. In some countries, public services covers police missions, but also disaster relief or firefighting. And here the increased performance of the H140 is also contributing to the flexibility, and it can carry much more load than a 135 today.
So, I mean, it sounds like you're very excited that the H140 will be able to perform in multiple mission sets and really be a utilitarian helicopter of all sorts of different industry missions. Again, Volker, I'm a pilot. That's my background. So I'm always a little bit fascinated to hear about this idea of test flying. And I know that you had mentioned that you're not going out there and doing aerobatics and crazy things like one might think. But just tell me about some of the missions that you guys have accomplished so far in your testing. And is it? I'm guessing it's a bit of a stair step. You do this, and then you go through this, and then you can kind of come here, and then you come here. Where are we at on that spectrum right now of flight testing?
Yeah, you know, when you start an aircraft from the first scratch on, that's for a test pilot, it's a once a life chance to do this. You're in a team. You have done hundreds of ground runs, and then you start incremental. You are followed by a test instrumentation. There are 20, 30 people watching all loads, watching all limit, and hear your breath, and then everybody hears it. So you're absolutely focused on the mission. And after the first flight, when the first impression, the first data came in, then you follow exactly the program how to certify an aircraft. So you go in quartering flights, you go on altitude, you go in performance data, in handling quality. So you do your normal basic stuff to certify the aircraft. And where we already had the flight envelope expansion, so we are done with this. And now the next will be hot and high. So we will go to altitude, we will go to high, and we will go into the demo flights.
Yeah, very exciting. And of course, I'm going to talk about certification. But before we get to certification, on the pilot side, I know that you guys have made it not just with the H140, but with other recent aircraft, with the avionics, that you guys are really trying to support pilots, give them more tools to be successful, make the aircraft more ergonomic, decreasing vibration to make a pilot and or a crew be able to sustain longer flights and things like that. From a pilot perspective, just talk to me a little bit about some of the enhancements in the H140 that help secure that mission of making the pilot's life just a little bit easier, because ultimately I'm confident that leads to a much better safety margin.
So in terms of avionic, we will continue what we have worked on the 145 and the 135. So we will continue with our helionics avionic. We will improve it. We can put mission stuff in, and from handling, and that's the good part. When you do the first flights, you have a raw aircraft. You have no autopilot. You have no helping systems in the aircraft. It looks good. It's an old talk, I know, but if it looks good, it flies good. It flies perfectly well. From the first on, the controls are so well harmonized. So it gives you a smile when you fly this aircraft. It's such a nice aircraft.
That's awesome. That's a good sign. It means that you and your engineers are doing something right.
They're great.
They're the best, right? So certification, that's always a hot topic. Last year, I was fortunate enough to podcast with lots of people here at the show, and that seemed to be a bit of a continual contention point, a bit of a bottleneck per se, of this idea of being able to certify new components on aircrafts, or let alone now certifying a new aircraft. So talk to me, Dirk, a little bit about the path of certifications and what milestones you guys have to kind of hit in order to hit your target date, which I believe is 2028.
Yeah, it was already mentioned a bit by Volker. So the flight campaigns that are on our menu. On the H140, we have been starting early with all kinds of activities, and certification is already ongoing. So the certification process is launched, and we have started with off-aircraft test campaigns. So as you said, you do the off-aircraft test where you validate elements of the helicopters, components of the helicopters, and then the big flight campaigns. And in order to secure the timeline of the H140 development, we will introduce another 3 prototypes into the development. Today we are flying with 1. 2 others are actually in production. The second prototype will come by mid of the year. It will go into service by mid of the year, and then beginning of next year there will be the 3rd prototype coming, and then end of the year the 4th prototype. The first 3 are pre-serial prototypes, so they are close to the final configuration, but the prototype 4 is in line with the serial configuration that will be certified. And then it's about pushing through the test campaign, taking the learnings out of the flights, doing the improvements in parallel to come with to secure our timeline in the development. And the team is, you also need to secure the resources, you need to have the engineers on board, you need to follow up the test programs, and then this is your guideline. If you see deviations, you need to find ways to come back. That is normal business and program management, and actually we are on a good track to meet our timeline.
That's awesome. I'm not a certification expert by any means. And so one question that I have, and it may be kind of a dumb question, so I apologize, but there's so many governments involved, right? Your planning of your helicopters currently operate globally. and I'm sure the H140 will also, of course, be global use aircraft. So how do you navigate the complexities of working with different regulatory bodies? Is there like if you follow this path, then that will cover certification here, here, and here? Or do you have to go to each regulator to certify the aircraft?
So it starts where the OEM sits. So we are based in Europe, and by this the EASA is our authority to certify the aircraft. The US market is a very important one for the H140. As you know, today there are hundreds of H135s operated in the US, and we see also, and you saw it yesterday with the communications, the US air medical operators, so the large air medical operators, the major ones in the US, they already committed on the H140. So it's also our goal to certify quickly in FAA. And together with both authorities, with EASA, FAA, we have launched the process. So FAA is already on board, and it's a parallel processing. But EASA is always first, because this is our lead authority, and we are taking the comments from FAA to make sure that in our certification program, both authorities are considered in the execution. So that is the basic approach. And then after, so EASA will be first, then FAA, and then we go for all the foreign country validations in various countries.
Lots of things happening right now economically, right?
Yeah.
The global economy is getting shaken up a little bit, specifically by some of the policies of our new administration here in the United States. Talk to me just a little bit about how you guys are approaching the ever-changing economic landscape and how that affects Airbus.
So I'm focused on the H140 and the H135, and as far as I'm concerned, we are executing our contracts. We are delivering. We have a good relationship to the. We have a US company, AHI, and we are closely working together with them. We have even production lines in the US, and we will adapt whatever happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the name of the game, right? Everything's always fluid, ever changing. I was fortunate enough to have Bruno on the podcast last year here at this table. Of course, we were in Anaheim, but that was a great conversation. And one of the points that he brought up was, Airbus's initiatives with sustainability and reducing their impact on the environment. How does the H140 accomplish that directive from Bruno?
So there are two elements. If you speak about sustainability or footprint of an aircraft, there's one, the CO2 emission of an aircraft. So, and here it starts with the engine, and the H140 comes with a brand new engine. It's also a development based on an Aries 2B2+, but incorporating latest level of technologies. And the engine of the H140 has the same fuel burn as the one of the 135, but delivers more power. Dependent on the situation, it's up to 10% plus with same fuel burn. So that is already one element, making the engine efficient. That is the job of Safran, and we are integrating this engine. The helicopter will be also capable to be operated with sustainable aviation fuel. That is the other element contributing to CO2 emissions. And in terms of where the aircraft is finally positioned, I cannot anticipate at the moment the exact data. We need to do the flight test campaign to see the CO2 emissions of the H140, but we expect the H140 to be benchmark in this weight class of helicopters. And then the other point where communities are affected is noise emission of the aircraft, and we have put a high focus on this on the H140. On the main rotor, we are operating the aircraft with a lower rotational speed, which is reducing the noise emission of the main rotor. And the the Fenestron has a dedicated design to reduce noise emission as well. So we expect the H140, although it's heavier than an H145, not to have a higher noise emission than a 135.
Yeah, it's really important. I think that people often forget about noise, right? And I think that they call it noise pollution and things like that. And it's actually really affecting civil aviation, at least here in the United States. And I'm guessing it's the same in Europe. So it's good that OEMs like Airbus are taking the proactive steps to ensure that the helicopters can be a little bit more quiet. Helicopters play such a vital role. And again, you guys have pinpointed this for air medical. What does that mean to you? In 2028, this aircraft with you and your team and you and your team will be certified and will be flying missions. You guys, of course, already have the 135 and the 145, saving lives every single day all over the world. What's just that personal feeling like to be a part of an aircraft that is doing so much good? Volker, I'll start with you.
Actually, it makes me really proud to be a part of his family. And if I'm on the street, if I'm in Germany or France or wherever on the highway and I see an accident and one of our products, doesn't matter, it is 135, 145 and in future 140, it will land there and rescues the lives and bring the people to hospital. It really makes me proud.
Yeah, exactly the same. So this is really a motivational aspect, and also seeing your aircraft flying in your hometown, landing even in your hometown, is giving you energy, and this is giving you a sense of what we are doing.
It's really important work, right?
Yeah,
Because there's so much ramification, specifically when it comes to the air medical use. You talked about other rescue, search and rescue, things like that. Helicopters play such a role in our world economy, and so it's just I'm guessing very neat to be a part of that. You guys, Dirk, Volker, thank you guys so much for coming on. Congratulations on what seems to be a really exciting release here at the first ever Verticon. Final point, what are you excited for on day 2 today?
We have a lot of attention on the aircraft, and I'm looking forward to speak to customers about the H140, to see their reactions. And yesterday was already great. So the feedback we received on the H140 was excellent. I expected it, but not to that level. So I saw this morning when I arrived, there's an article. We hit a speed spot with the H140, and that makes us proud.
That's extremely awesome. Volker, Dirk, thank you guys so much for joining. Congratulations on the amazing work that you guys are both doing at Airbus. I'm excited. I'm guessing you guys will be at European Rotors this year in Germany, so I'll be there. Maybe we can catch up there and do a little follow-up.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.